Hi, everyone. So I am Valerie Drinan. I'm the K4 STEM coordinator in Wakefield. Let me just share my screen here. So today I was asked to talk about how we've been doing our scheduling of ST Math this year and getting in the time to do it, which I know is always a challenge. Um, so just with some background information, last year in the 2019-20 school year, I shared ST Math with our K-2 teachers. One of my second grade teachers, Christine, is on here right now. Thanks, Christine, for coming. Um,
Absolutely.
if I miss anything, feel free to jump in. So I shared with the K-2 teachers, and most of our K-2 teachers participated in the trial accounts. So we went ahead and applied for the grant for all 4 schools with the original plan that we would implement K-2 in our 2021 school year and implement 3 to 4 in our 21-22 school year. And then when the pandemic hit and we had to switch everything around, we really wanted everything to be consistent in the elementary in order to best support everybody in implementation. So we went ahead and, I did talk with the 3 and 4 teachers before we made the decision, but we made the decision to move forward with ST Math for K-4 for this school year. And our schedule was structured for the starting off the school year. We went back in a hybrid schedule with half of our students attending in the AM session, half in the PM session. And so therefore, because our time in school was limited to about a 30 to 40-minute math block, a 30 to 40-minute ELA block, or sorry, reading, and then a 30, 40-minute writing block, ST Math had to be done asynchronously. So when we started off the year, it was all asynchronous. And I'm going to talk a little bit about how we added in some more time. Some of our teachers got a little bit creative and added in some time. And then now we're going to be able to add in some more time. So at the beginning of the year, as I was saying, we started off with just giving how many minutes everybody should be doing, and everybody, teachers were all assigning asynchronous work on their own. And then as a district, we all decided that we needed to help each other be able to create this asynchronous work. So we were fortunate enough to have weekly curriculum meetings where our teachers got together for 2 hours in the morning with myself and the literacy coaches. And each team of teachers split off into people that were planning for math and people that were planning for ELA. And during that time, they would plan their synchronous lessons. But in addition, we had this asynchronous work grid that went to every grade level. So each grade level created their own work grid. But the one thing that stayed consistent each week was our oh my God, why am I blanking on what we're calling them right now? Our digital instructional resources. So we made sure every work grid had 20 minutes a day for Alexia, 20 minutes a day for Raz Kids, and 20 minutes a day for ST Math for all students. So that was 1 hour of their asynchronous work time was in our digital curriculum resources. And as I shared before, we in the scope and sequence document that I put together with some teachers over the summer, I aligned the ST Math objectives to the work we were doing in our Envisions curriculum in the classroom. So that way our students could progress in the same order that we were teaching the curriculum, even if they were on their own pace. They would hit the subjects in the same way. And then the rest of this would be filled in by the teachers during the planning times. And these went home every week. So once we started doing this, we did see an increase in our minutes. And then our next challenge, as Christine knows, she's one of the champions that's been helping me implement this, was really getting some more buy-in with our older students who hadn't experienced it before. And that's where our awesome champions, I have one for each school, thankfully, has helped with building in some competitions similar to what Damien was talking about, where they were celebrating minutes or puzzles per week. And that was, they would track that and announce that at the school level. So that helped with encouraging the students to get on during their asynchronous time, since we did not have this built into the schedule. And then, so some of our teachers did, as they started seeing, minutes were it picked up over time. And at the beginning, it was slower. And so some of our grade level teams, specifically our first grade team, started building in ST Math Mondays. And so they would still follow the scope and sequence and teach the math lessons for the week from our Envisions. But on Mondays, they would do a celebration of the previous week's ST Math and set goals for that week and give the kids some time to talk about that in the class. Um, and some of our other grade teachers, were able to figure out ways to build in some ST Math through like the individual conversations, like I was sharing before, where if a kid got hit a hurdle, they could talk to them in the classroom. So that was through our data meetings, which I'll talk about next. I don't want to jump ahead. But some of the biggest challenges we hit in the beginning were the inconsistency of usage, and then we put the grid into place, and then we're able to support teachers with our champions at each building. They were key members of making this work happen, and be successful. Um, Building some family support. So we did have a parent session at the beginning of the year. We have parent university twice a year. So I ran a session with the literacy coaches in the beginning of the year where we shared information with families about ST Math and Lexi and Raz Kids, so all of our digital curriculum resources. And we were able to provide some background to families, and those were all recorded sessions that we could post and share with our families. In addition, I created some family support documents, pulling resources from ST Math as the teachers were getting flooded with the email questions. I took the most common ones and put together some documents for them to share out with parents. That way, it would help with that support. I can share those in that folder too. And then once we hit the point where we had seen more consistency and growth in minutes and puzzles per week, and we had started, getting some more buy-in, um, it became the challenge of, okay, what do we do with those kids that we're still not seeing bought in? Like now it was like less kids. So how do we tackle this? And that's where we came up with having our data meetings. So I'll talk about that in just a minute. And as we're shifting to in-person learning now, we've been having a lot of meetings the last couple of weeks about how to structure academic blocks that will be longer blocks of time now. But some of, I guess I could have put this as a challenge on my bullets here, actually. Some of the challenges are going to be that different grade levels may have broken up blocks. So like there's a 60-minute block for math, but depending on the teacher's schedule, it may come out 30 and 30 or 45 and 15 or 40 and 20. So we came up with some suggested ways that teachers could build that in to their block. So we didn't change the expectations for the lessons being taught in the classroom. So we were still sticking to our 2 to 3 math lessons of Envisions per week, and then building in the ST Math into the classroom learning now as well, because ST Math has been a complementary part of our curriculum this year since it was aligned with our scope and sequence. And there was no possible way with the minutes that we had in the day that we could deeply cover everything. So we needed both to work together. So as we enter back to in-person learning, I've talked with RESM about how we can support teachers. So she and I are working on reaching out to teachers and offering coaching sessions. So that way, if they want to use puzzle talks in the classroom that they haven't been trained on yet, she can come in and help us with that. Talking about how to support kids through hurdles. And now we're fortunate enough that we do have Chromebooks, one-on-one Chromebooks for all grade levels coming out of this situation. So, where did one second. I put this in the wrong order here. Sorry about that. One slide was out of order. So this slide here is a sample schedule that's going out to our teachers of like how you could break down that block, knowing that everybody's going to have a different structure to their block, but they'll have the 60 minutes in their day. So you can see here, like there's blocks where you could do 40 and 20 and do that every day. Or if you have 30 and 30, if you have a straight 60-minute block, you could break it up. So ST Math is 3 days a week and the longer lessons 2 days a week. So we kind of thought through some different possibilities, and these are just samples. And we're going to work with the teachers if there's other ways that they want to schedule it. But the idea would be that the expectation is that they're meeting the 60 minutes per week in K1 and the 90 minutes per week in 2-5, because one of the fears with, the switch to this in-person learning was, okay, well, now the kids won't do ST Math anymore, right? So we had to make sure that that was still part of the expectation built into our school day. So that's how we're shifting from using it asynchronously to using it synchronously. And we'll find out in a few weeks how that goes. So I'll next talk about the data meeting. So like I was saying before, some of the challenges we had were figuring out how to find the time to provide teachers time to look at the data and to follow up with it. So we started implementing these data meetings in January. We were able to get through one cycle per grade. And the way that these were structured was our teachers had already had 2 PD sessions prior to these data meetings in the fall. They had the sessions, fall and winter. And at the time, ST Math is being done all asynchronous. So we had some students not logging in, or some students that were stuck on a level with many, many tries that people weren't aware of, and some were moving very quickly through and finishing faster than what was predicted. So we developed these meetings to support teachers to provide time for them to actually look at the data together with their teams, and provided some guidance on when and how to make curriculum adjustments to provide support for the specific students that came up in the meetings. So it started off with a review of the information that was learned in PD, because as we know this year, we've been thrown a lot of information, but then not a lot of time to always implement that. So we had the 2 PD sessions, but then our teachers weren't able to use ST Math daily in the classroom. So they weren't able to apply a lot of that stuff that we learned. So we reviewed that in these data meetings to be able to apply that as we were trying to address students that needed more support. So the general, skipped a slide. The general data meeting template, and this is in the folder too, I just put a blank template in there. It started with an overview of our district and grade level data. So we looked at quiz growth across our grades. We looked at the grade level usage, whichever grade we were looking at for the week that we were looking at it. And then just with the reminder of what the goals were for that grade level. So including the percent completion, because when that was added, that was really helpful to figure out what students really were making progress through the curriculum and what ones were stuck or not meeting their time or not getting on. So we included that as well. Then a review of what was available to the teachers for the reports. So the usage reports, the objective reports, and then we talked about the warnings. So because they had learned about this in PD and again hadn't had time to implement. So we went back to see, okay, do we have any warnings? What are the warnings? Who do we need to follow up with? And then we talked about some times of like when and how you might want to assign alternate objectives if a kid was stuck, or if the kid was not making progress, if a student was going too quickly, if you're seeing like a need or a gap that needs to be filled. We talked about how to add objectives. So then we went through that process. And then the rest of the time was given to the teachers to talk with their grade level teams, or some grade levels actually decided to stay on together and talk together as a group. But then they could look at their own individual class data and see, okay, what kids do I need to follow up with in the classroom? What kids maybe are way ahead of where they need to be, and maybe I need to make adjustments. And we use some of the tools from ST Math to do that. So those are all linked in there as well. All right, and that's it. I have the 2 templates if anybody wants to see those, but I'll open it up to questions for right now.
Can you talk a little bit about how the teachers responded to this? Like, how did you get them to buy in to what feels like it's a little bit more in depth than what they were used to or were thinking about for ST Math?
Yeah, like you mean like for the data meetings or for the schedule, or for both?
Sort of for both, I
For
think.
both.
Yeah, I mean, this seems like an amazing amount of like buy-in would be needed from the teachers to do this work.
Well, I think in general, and Christine, feel free to chime in as a teacher that experienced this too, because Christine is one of my teachers in here. For one of the things that helped with it was having that curriculum meeting time that we had weekly. So we had a 2-hour block where they could meet together. The K-2 teachers were already bought in because they were all excited about it from the trial from the fall. And then really the buy-in from the 3 to 4 teachers I really honestly can't take full credit for for that, because our champions did a lot of work at the school level with that, by creating some competition. So like two of the schools, the champions bought penguin costumes and they dressed up as Gigi and visited the rooms. So I think some of that buy-in with the upper grades came from the champions creating excitement with the students. Christine would put out a weekly, like basically like a video that was celebrating the kids in the school. So she would put that out every Monday morning for the teachers to play their classes. The principal would announce that over the loudspeaker, for students that had like the most minutes or the most puzzles or whatever the, whatever the incentive was that week. So those were the things that created more buy-in. We still, I would say we're still working on like full buy-in from 3 and 4. Like we're still not, I'd be lying if I said everybody was was totally in right now, but we have way more than we did at the beginning of the year, just through the giving the teachers time to talk to each other, and plan together through that, and also the use of our champions at each building who were building up the excitement and the puzzles and the competitions, um, and the principals that chimed in. I think the principal piece was a key piece, that when we were talking about this challenge with Erin, our ESM, that she shared some, well, one of the principals she worked with in another district had put out like morning announcements and stuff. So we talked with some of our principals and they were like, oh yeah, we can announce that on the speaker. So like I think the buy-in from them got the kids excited as well. So yeah, I think that was a big part of the piece. And then the data meeting, I think teachers were asking for time to look at data, like to be able to like use the resources that they didn't have time to use together. Because we had these 2-hour planning blocks, but most of it was talked about in planning the asynchronous work and planning the asynchronous lessons. So there wasn't a lot of time for them to actually look at the data from ST Math and from Lexia and from RAS kids that they were collecting outside of, like doing it on their own at night when not everybody's going to have time to do that. So I think designating dedicated time for that was another piece. Like I know some of the feedback I got from those meetings was like, thanks for walking through that, I didn't remember that, or I didn't know that, I didn't know where to find that. And so it just gave like smaller groups, because we met one grade level at a time, so there was about 10 to 12 teachers on at a time, could ask questions and feel more comfortable talking with each other about it as well.
Hi, Val. I just want to jump on to, for
Yeah.
those of you that are on here, I apologize, my video is off, I'm commuting home, but I did want to say that as a second grade teacher, and having the buy-in, not just being the champion, but I think our school, I can speak for my school and also some of the other teachers and other champions that I know that are at the other buildings, I think the buy-in is also for the fact, not just because of the challenges, it's also helpful, I think, especially when classrooms are being celebrated and they have siblings in the other grades as well. I know personally in my grade, in my classroom, I have some siblings that are in kindergarten, and also some siblings that are in 4th grade. And I know that Val did speak about the 3rd and 4th grade having a harder buy-in time. And I know that we're trying to find ways in order to celebrate on this, instead of just the top minutes, the top puzzles, and the top classes per grade, to really try to get the excitement out of the other classes as well that might not have gotten on the boards, is just creating the most improved. And so looking at most improved, even one of the 4th grade teachers that was most improved the other week was so excited and said, oh my goodness, finally something, my kids are going to be thrilled, and it's going to get them that much more excited in order to try to be a part of the competition. So just finding creative ways and able to include them, and also to celebrate, because we also have had some 4th graders who have been top puzzles in the entire school, not necessarily their classroom being number one, but also, just saying, hey, I'm a 4th grader in the building because we're K to 4, and, look what I can do, and kind of be that has not always had the best. I really stepped it up, especially in 1 or 2 of the classes. So I think just having those small celebrations and the community in our building And also in our district, including the principals, I think have really contributed to that. Even some of the parents walking out of the building will be like, congratulations to whoever's class is in. So I think just having that community talking to their classes, saying, hey, second graders and kindergartners even at that are, being a part of the announcements. And, you guys are supposed to be the role models in the school. So just kind of building up that community, I think has been tremendous across the board. So I think just having all people on board in the building, and also understanding, like Val was saying, how kids had to take 5 minutes aside just when they're coming in the morning in their cohorts.
Yeah, I think Christine just hit on a really important point. Like, so we have all these structures that we put into place for scheduling and supporting teachers through planning and through data meetings, but then without that celebration piece and having the community buy-in in the schools, I think like to your question that you were saying, like that was part of the buy-in, right? If we could just put this schedule into place and put these planning times in place and then still have nothing. But I think the combination of the work the champions did at the schools and then the structures we put in place at the district level was really, it was the combination of all of that that has been the key to our successes that we've had in this year. Yeah.
So Val, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
For schools that are on right now, there's, people who have been remote all year headed into hybrid, or people who are remote all year headed into fully back. What would you think the best lesson learned, or the one tip you would give them from moving from however they were doing it, but completely remote, whether that's asynchronously or during math time, and how to moving back to changing schedule at all? What would be like your biggest lesson learned, or your biggest tip for them?
Yeah, no, I think our key in our scheduling was the use of the resources combined, right? So our curriculum resource that we had, our expectation was 2 to 3 lessons a week. So that way we also had time to do the ST Math to make sure the students were hitting on those objectives as well. So I think my biggest piece of advice would be like having some sort of structure. And I think right now our key is giving some flexibility to that structure. So giving a structure, but with some options, right? So it's not just like everybody has to do 20 minutes a day, but like for some of the students in the upper grades, for example, some of the feedback we were getting from teachers was like, they're getting bored of doing it every day. Okay, so let's move to like 3 days a week, and we'll do longer periods on those 3 days a week where they might get through another level. So I think providing structure, but with a little bit of flexibility, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so one thing I heard you say is that thinking about using that within the core too, and not necessarily giving some time within that core block to allow for SC Math, and taking away a little bit of whatever that core curriculum time is, and kind of working with both of them and able to push up those minutes, or just to be able to get to that usage that you're looking for.
Yeah, definitely. We did some prioritizing on our lessons that we needed to teach, right? So we looked at a unit and said, okay, what are the priority lessons in this unit? And we prioritized our scope and sequence with the priority standards. So I think that allowed for us to be like, okay, well, we could skip this lesson and do this lesson, or take pieces of this lesson. So yes, that to your clarification there, definitely being able to take some from the core curriculum time and mix this in with it, because we referred to both of these as a piece of our curriculum, right? We kept referring, like, ST Math is part of our curriculum. It's not just like an extra fun game that they're playing. It's actually part of the learning that we're doing, and we won't be able to actually accomplish all of the learning goals that we want to accomplish in this year with these weird schedules if we don't do some sort of combination with ST Math and our curriculum resource together. So we wouldn't have been able to get through the amount of curriculum we've been able to get through without ST Math, because I think one of the things that was really important was that a lot of times our kids were getting to content before we taught it. So they had some background knowledge that they could build on where it would help you trim down some of those lessons, right? Um, and there's always the kids that we're going to have to provide some extra support, but in general, I think it helped us move it along. Would you agree with that, Christine?
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. And then I'm thinking about even, the support. I go back to the community, even like the parents. Like I've had parents that have reached out to me, so-and-so is stuck on something. And I would say, well, in the first 15 minutes when we have that grace period of kids coming in and getting settled, I would have a Chromebook ready to go and I'd be in their account and I would kind of troubleshoot with a child as well. Like, hey, mom and dad said you're having a hard time. I'm noticing that there's an indicator as well. Like I figured I would chat, like what's hard for you? Can we talk this through? So I think it just kind of goes back to spending the time, building the community, and also just being available to the kids and to the parents for questions.
I think a big, like thinking about going like remote to fully back in person, for those of you that are hitting that, I think like a big piece was just providing that structure. So, or if you're going from remote to some sort of hybrid, I think this grid was really key. Like in the beginning, it was hard because everybody wanted to do their own thing. And it wasn't a super easy transition from the beginning, because the first couple of weeks, we were all trying to figure everything out. And so we didn't have some sort of structure for the teachers. So everyone was doing their own thing. And then that was becoming a problem because everyone was doing their own thing. But then when we had to shift to everybody doing a similar thing or the same thing, in some ways, not everybody just was like super happy about that in the beginning. It wasn't just okay, we're all going to do this now. And everybody was like, yeah, fine. There was some bumps in the road where we had to do a lot of communicating from myself and the literacy coaches, from the principals, from our assistant superintendent, who was kind of the driving force behind creating these curriculum meetings. She really wanted to provide teachers time to do that. So I think, that combination of everyone together and just, continuing to support people through those challenges and continuing to recognize, yes, I know this is not the way we're used to doing it, but also this is what's best for our kids right now. Because if they're in those learning pods or if they're in the after school programs, having this consistency allows for more people to support them. And that was a big piece of it. I mean, a lot of our kids that were going to after school programs, they had a group that they were working with one adult. And that one adult, if they had this grid that had everything the same, no matter what school the kid came from, no matter what grade level, like they could work with kids and help support them better to get that accomplished. So.
Yeah, and Val, also like recently, even talking about the after school support too. I mean, we've had after school support reach out saying, these children are spending the 20 minutes or 25 minutes on their time, but how come they're not getting any puzzles? And so even there was a miscommunication on the end of they need to complete that white bar in order to collect all those puzzles. And they were like, aha, so basically we should keep them on. We should make sure that they are spending the time so they can complete those to collect those puzzles. So even that and we're in March, and these are things that are just, like Val said, we're going to have challenges in the next 2 weeks when we join these cohorts together. It's going to be flexibility again on our grids. It's going to be flexibility of 2 and 3 math lessons or reading and writing lessons, and just getting to know a whole new schedule again. We're going to get to know it. The kids are going to get to know it. But we can use some of that time to build in ST Math, and it's going to be a new change for them. What do you mean we're doing this in school? We're not doing this at home anymore? Well, you can do it at home as extra if you want to, but this is going to be the new routine. So I think just having the flexibility, like Val was saying, our district has been so supportive for that, and they've just made it so seamless for us, even though at first it may seem overwhelming. The flexibility is definitely key.
Yeah, I keep hearing from you guys flexibility and then the priorities, right? So like naming your priorities and using ST Math to really focus in on what that is. And that's definitely, I think, for the people on here, really thinking about that is that structure, giving that flexibility, but also really being focused in on priority. And that time to talk about what the priorities are, I think, is also something that some schools don't have the opportunity to do. And so thinking about how creatively you can do that to be able to get those conversations in. Thank you very much for sharing with us. I know we have a couple minutes left, but.
I think the other just to add the other piece is that communication amongst everybody, like that was key. I mean, like Christine was saying, like not all this was like a super easy transition, but we would do something, we would try it, we would gather feedback from the teachers and then make adjustments that we could make, right? And not everybody got what they wanted out of all those, but everybody had a voice in what was going on, and had an opportunity to like make changes. And we did use the feedback to implement changes. So I think that also helped with some of the buy-in as well. But I'll put this in the shared folder along with the two templates, because there is a template that goes along with this, and then there's a template that went along with our data meeting schedule that's linked in here as well. So I'll put those in the folder. Looks like we're about to get kicked out. So anyone have one last question? Are we good?
Just a thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Val. This is great.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem. Happy to help.